Welcome to Season 6, Episode 9 of The Sailing Show, the monthly podcast that will steer and inspire you along your sailing journey. I'm Abby Ehler. I've competed in the Volvo Ocean Race 3 times and worked shoreside with the America's Cup and Sail GP. I'm also a director of the Magenta project, a UK charity organisation that is committed to developing pathways and generating opportunities for women in performance sailing. On this podcast, I'll be chatting to a wide range of women within the sailing community, including Olympic champions, ocean racers, change makers, and up-and-coming champions. My guest today is Helena Scutt. Helena has been sailing the Moth dinghy, a foiling development class, since 2018, and shares with us her transition from the Olympic class dinghies across to the foiling Moth. We chat about the potential barriers getting into the class, the differences between the Wasp and the Moth, and her new role as class vice president. Helena, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm really excited to have you here and to pick your brains about everything there is to know about sailing the Moth. And we're fresh off the back of the Moth Worlds, which have recently just completed in Lake Garda, and we saw a huge increase in participation from female sailors, which has been fantastic. So I'm really keen to hear all about the Worlds and about the women's camp that happened in the lead up to that, but also just to hear your pathway about how you got into sailing the Moth, or even into foiling boats. So why don't we kick off with a little bit about how your sailing background and really what led you into foiling boats?
Yeah, Abby, thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here. So my sailing background, I actually didn't start racing until I was 15, a bit of a late comer, and rapidly got hooked in the 29er after a little short season in the laser. And I left the double-handed, I left the speed. I was obsessed with soccer, football before that, and I think the speed of the 29er was what drew me over. I campaigned in the 49er FX starting in 2013 with my skipper, Paris Henkin, and we ended up qualifying for the Rio Games in 2016. We finished 10th, made the medal race. That was our goal. We were really proud of giving a career best performance there, and I love that boat so much. I just think it's such a fantastic platform, and it was a real honor to be part of history with the first games for the FX there. And then after that, I actually went back to grad school and finished up my master's degree in mechanical engineering. And it was nice to have something finite, very intense, but finite, and that kind of ground me right after. And then during that time, I started sailing the Nacra 17, which was recently had just become foiling. And so I started sailing that with Bora Galari, who has a lot of foiling expertise. And it was a massive learning curve. So that's what was really my first full-on foiling experience. Bora and I split up as a team in late 2018. And I had gotten my Moth about a year before, but hadn't sailed it much due to injury and being on the Olympic circuit. And so I remember it was fall in Seattle, pretty cold up there. And I was sailing on the lake, and I sailed as much as I could before it got too cold. And then I moved to San Francisco, started my job, which is what I'm still doing. I'm a mechanical engineer. And then as the summer came around, I started sailing my boat more and more. That was 2 years ago now.
Wow. Okay. But I mean, what prompted you to get into the Moth? I mean, you were in the 49er, but even going from the 49er to a Moth, I would imagine, is a fairly big step.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I think not as much as people might think. So I got the Moth while I was sailing with Bora, and the idea was that at that time, actually, after the summer that I got it, after sailing the Nacra 17, it was the first summer that they were foiling. And we were foiling a lot upwind because we were training by ourselves and not in a big group. And then as we got to more people, it became VMG was less foiling upwind. But at the time, it seemed like the more foiling experience I could have as a crew, the better. And so, Bora thought it would be a great the best way to get more foiling experience without being in the Nacra. And so that's what prompted me to get the boat. And then, I definitely had a lot of, doubts or reservations about my ability, which I realize now I look back and I laugh. It was unwarranted. And I hope that people can take away from this that they shouldn't put those doubts upon themselves either. But I thought, I got into sailing late. I've basically always been a crew. I've only skippered one regatta in the last, years that I can remember. And so I thought I thought that since I was a crew, maybe I wouldn't be cut out for it. And that's laughable now because crews are so in tune with the boat. Of course, in the skiff and the Nacra, you're doing the main sheet. I remember looking at Ian Jensen, Goobs, and he was doing extremely well. And I know obviously he's a fantastic crew. So that gave me confidence or hope. So I would say not to put those limits on yourself. You definitely know what's going on.
Can you think back to those first sails that you did in the Moth? I mean, even just trying to launch one of these things is fairly complex.
I do have a good story about my very first sail on a Moth. It was, it must have been like 2008. There's just one sail, and went out on a Moth in Seattle, where I grew up, and wiped out. But the boat kept sailing for about 100 yards. It was like perfectly balanced. So I ended up really far away from the boat and had a good laugh. But yeah, it was like, oh, okay, this boat has clearly a mind of its own sometimes.
I've had a similar experience with the Wasp. Slightly, come back. I mean, it seems I'm just thinking out loud that the number of people that I've spoken to that have sailed foiling dinghies, they've quite often got an engineering background. I mean, I'm thinking of Elise Beavis, for example, and a few of the other girls that have really sort of taken the bull by the horns. Do you think that having that engineering background, I'm sure it obviously helps, but in what sort of sense is it helping in your thoughts?
I think it helps, and engineers love to talk about engineering, so I think you get a bit of a bias hearing about it. I think it absolutely helps. There's no question about that, but it's definitely not necessary. And what I think is underlying kind of how it helps moth sailing is because a lot of engineers are used to asking the question, why? We don't just take something at face value. We want to know why. Like, why is it this cause and effect? Why does this happen when I do that? Why is this better? And so I think you don't have to be an engineer, but you are going to progress faster if you want to understand how something is working.
Yeah.
So
maybe it's just having that inquisitivity to ask the questions and to understand, what makes the boat foil and how you control your lift or your ride height. I mean, I guess, that's the difference from sailing a plain boat, a non-foiling boat, where you're not having to think about that sort of three-dimensional value. It's really, having that open mind and that almost that hunger to understand, to be able to sail it better.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the curiosity. And of course, the Moth is a development class. And so the people who start to really push the boundaries of the Moth, they are asking why, because they want to exploit that. And that's awesome. So I also think there are parallels with this idea of asking questions and wanting to know the deeper level. A lot of people, their sailing background is in boats where things are much more established. Like, I'll just say the Laser, for example. And so a coach can tell you exactly what to do, and you don't necessarily need to understand why. You're like, okay, I know I put my bang to these marks or something like that. And that is great for learning how to do things extremely well. But when you, for instance, let's say you exit, this is part of my story, exit Olympic sailing, no longer have a coach boat behind you 9 out of 10 days that you go sailing. And you have to think for yourself. You have to teach yourself, come up with ideas. And whether that's you on your own, trial and error, or whether that's watching video of other people, or whether it's with a training group and asking questions of them, it's being able to know how to coach yourself and to not be afraid to try new things and see it fail or try again. And so that's what draws me to the Moth class, is there's all these dimensions. There are so many things you can control and tweak, and there's always that new cutting edge aspect of it. So I think that's kind of the tie between engineering and sailing, for me at least.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I guess if we were to talk about some of the perceived barriers about getting into the Moth class, we know that it can be an expensive item to purchase. I would say with foiling boats, you often can't be sailed everywhere in terms of conditions. You're looking for some ideal conditions. So, I mean, how, what is your vision for making the class more accessible to people that are keen to get into this particular class?
Yeah, absolutely. I see a couple of solutions, and I'm still feel pretty new to the class myself. Definitely need some more time to reflect on some of this. But as far as cost of the boats, so there's a little bit of a chicken and egg, where people with boats, they're expensive. They don't necessarily want a beginner to break something if they were to let them sail their boat. That said, I do think Moth sailors are very generous people with their time and boats, but that can be one thing. And so someone doesn't want to spend a lot of money on a boat without trying it first. And so something that we have hopefully in the works here in the US is there's a Skiff Sailing Foundation, and they have a couple of moths, and that have been donated, and we'd like to turn them into boats to use for clinics to get newcomers into the Moth. And then maybe do something like a first season in the Moth program, where maybe for some nominal deposit, you can essentially charter this Moth, get up to speed with it. And then now that you are hooked on the class, you're stoked for more, and you're ready to cough up for a boat of your own. So something like that to allow people to get introduced to it, get the fundamentals, and then figure out what the best boat might be for them, because there are different options in the Moth class and different price points, etc. There are longer term discussions in the class that I'm new to, definitely still gathering context on how we could make it less cost prohibitive. I don't have any answers right now. It's certainly expensive. I think there are two edges to the sword. One is I would recommend people getting the best boat that they can afford, because it will allow them to focus on sailing and their technique rather than if your boat's not set up correctly or always breaking down, of course, that's going to suck your time away from sailing. And then the other side of it is that I think there are a lot of people I see that go sailing and then they will just complain about their boat, but there's clearly things that they can be doing with better technique. So make sure that you're examining your own shortcomings and working on them, just like any sailor is always trying to do, but then also don't sell yourself short by trying to put up with a boat that's just maybe past its prime. Yeah,
that's an interesting. I had I think it was Rob Greenall gave exactly the same piece of advice in terms of the boat. If you've got one that is well set up, or if you've got that option to buy a boat that's is well set up, it's performed well at an event, then that is far better off than buying one for cheaper money, as you said, and you could spend your time just trying to get up to speed on it, and as you said, just wasting and sucking your time.
And to the newcomers, don't be afraid to ask existing moth sailors to have them look over your boat or look over a boat before you buy it, or if you've already bought it, help you get up to speed. The moth sailors that I know really want more people in the class and are really welcoming and have been there before and they know how it goes. And then to the, I would encourage, for instance, someone trying to sell their boat, offer a weekend of help setting it up or something like that, like getting someone sorted. That can do a world of good for accelerating someone's progression.
The recent Worlds, which have happened in Lake Garda, as we touched on. But leading up to that, Luca Risotto, who is the president of the Moth Class, initiated a women's moth camp in the lead up. And basically I believe they had 4 boats on offer, and a number of people could apply as, first timers wanting to give the moth a go, obviously with a sort of a certain level of skill to give it a go. And also any female moth owners were invited to the camp. So yeah, you were there. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't there for the whole thing with my time off from work, but I did catch a couple of days of it at the end, which was fantastic. So major kudos to Luca and also the coach, Francesco Bianchi, for organizing that and coaching. Just really wonderful. It was so cool to see the momentum built so quickly. I think as soon as the Facebook post went up, Luca got some messages. And then as soon as the women who were at the clinic started posting about it, then many more messages were incoming and there was a lot of interest. And that's just really wonderful to see. I joined towards the end of the camp. And what was so cool was me sailing around these women and thinking, wow, they have just been sailing this boat for a matter of days and they're doing so well. And I was really pumped to see that. So it was a really successful effort. I think we had at least 12 women at the camp, and there were more that wanted to attend, and definitely more around the world that were like, oh, sign me up for the next one already, please.
Yeah, exactly.
In the 2017 Worlds in Garda, there were, I think, 4 women. And this year, 2021 in Garda, we had 12 women at Racing Worlds, and the clinic was a huge part in tripling that number. So that's fantastic. The other thing is that we will, a new class rule is that there will be clinics before Worlds, and before every Worlds and every Europeans, there must be a women's moth clinic, which is going to do great things. And then part of my role as VP, I would like to help organize other clinics so that you can go to the clinic and then go back and train and take those learnings, have more time to put them to use before the Worlds. So I would like to make them more frequent as well. But of course, need to figure out where the best location and time of year, et cetera, would be for that.
Wow. I mean, well, that all sounds fantastic. And I mean, that just the fact that the camp has happened and how much positivity and, the results that you see from the numbers. I mean, it's a huge increase, almost up to 10, well, I think over 10%, 11% of female participation at this Moth Worlds compared, as you said, to previous events is a great target to have surpassed. And I think, as you said, holding these clinics, it's just, you could argue, well, why not do a mixed camp or et cetera, et cetera. I think it just gives that little bit of comfort blanket, if you want to call it that, or that support in an all-female environment that just can help boost that confidence. There's no egos, no issues about asking what you might feel is a stupid question, just to build that sort of that confidence in yourself and in your skill level to then go and compete against what are effectively some of the best sailors in the world. So it can be, I'm sure, quite intimidating joining that fleet. So I think, great that, as you said, in your new role, that will be on your to-do list.
There's a lot of camaraderie as well. So we have a Women's Moth WhatsApp group right now. And if anyone wants to join, send me a message, or Luca. And there's still chatter going on well after the Worlds, which is fantastic. And we had a really nice dinner one evening, a couple nights before the Worlds, and again, got to know each other more. That was really special. And what I feel like is we're reaching a critical mass where that really allows momentum to build. And I'm very excited about that. And for me, I've been sailing the Moth for, at least a couple of years now. And I don't think I'd ever been out on the water at the same time as another woman Moth sailor around me ever. And so I show up at Worlds and all of a sudden there's a dozen of us. And it was just so refreshing and made me really, really excited.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fantastic to see, and it can only, as you say, improve from here. And I wonder whether this sort of momentum has, the build of it, I wonder if it has been helped by other events such as SailGP, such as the fact that the Nacra 17 class is a foiling boat and a mixed discipline in the Olympics. Is it really helping, the fact that there is foiling classes are on the move, and the fact that we're seeing more women involved, or that there's role models to look at? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's happening probably for a lot of reasons and from a lot of different angles. Foiling in general is becoming more mainstream, like all sorts of different craft. I think, the Nacra, the foiling Nacra being in the Olympics is certainly helping. And it goes both ways, right? Like more women Moth sailing may enter the Nacra class, as things build, and it could go back and forth. SailGP is another one. The Moth is arguably the best training platform for that. So there's foiling kiteboarding as well. Lots of different avenues. I also think women have probably wanted to do this for a long time and didn't necessarily feel welcomed, or that there were clear avenues for success. And so I think the strength in the numbers that's building, the different initiatives that are making it explicit that women are welcomed is helping as well. And I think a range of avenues, a number of reasons, and what's important is that this all feeds off of each other, and there's no we don't need any adversarial Moth versus Wasp or anything like that. We know that it's an amazing feeder class, etc. So whatever gets more people on the water, having fun.
No, exactly. It's an interesting point that you just made about the Wasp and the Moth. I mean, for anyone that's hasn't yet embarked down this foiling route but is uber keen, I mean, what is your advice? You're obviously probably a little bit biased because I see you in the Moth class, but in terms of the Wasp and the Moth, I mean, what are the sort of just besides the obvious, the differences, what would be your advice in terms of those that are new and fresh getting into it?
Yeah, so different boats, therefore just different tools and different, it just about is what you want to get out of it. So I think that the Moth is fantastic, selfishly as a feeder to the Moth class. So the Moth would be a great place to start if you are brand new to foiling, if you're looking for a lower cost entry point. If boatwork isn't your strong suit yet, then being a more one design class, probably less tinkering involved. It may also depend on the fleet around you. Maybe there's a Wasp fleet, but no Moth fleet. And then there are some limitations, of course, it is not quite as fast. I think some things in the Wasp might be a little bit harder because you're not going as fast. And I think the wind range that it can foil might be a little bit less. But that said, it's so great for getting more people into foiling, single-handed foiling. And so I'm all for it. And then the Moth Class, you can expect that one, it, of course, will be more expensive, both in terms of your initial, well, you actually can find older moths at a similar price to new wasps, but then keeping up in the Moth Class, if as equipment evolves, can be expensive. Yeah, given all the carbon and everything, there can be more boat work in the Moth, and then it's kind of like maybe what you put into it is what you get out of it. You also get a lot. You get a lot faster. You at the Worlds there will be. Not to say that there aren't incredible sailors at Moth Worlds, but at Wasp Worlds, but at the Moth Worlds there are like so many gold medalists, America's Cup winners, etc. So super, super high level in the international events, such as Worlds. So yeah, 2 different tools. The Moth is it's my boat of choice, given kind of being at that really cutting edge high performance. But it's I'm so excited to see the growth of the Wasp class and also all the women and girls in it. And so hope to see some of them in the Moth Class soon.
No, it's very interesting, and some of the things that you've outlined there that I hadn't thought about. So it's very interesting. And I guess just to sort of try and wrap this up, with your new role as vice president of the Moth Class, I mean, what is on your agenda for the future, and any visions that you have? I mean, also for the class, but also for yourself in general. What's on the horizon?
Yeah, so for me personally, I'm excited to do the 2022 Worlds in Argentina. Should be a really wonderful event. So I'm excited for that. I'm super excited I already knew going into Garda Worlds that I would have so much to learn, and that I knew I would learn a ton at the Worlds, and then I just would not be able to wait to put it into place for the next World. So the learning curve is so high, and I really love that. For the class, so our goal is to at least double the number of women at Worlds for next year. So I'll be working on that and how to achieve that. I think more women's moth clinics. So we have the Europeans next spring. I'm not sure if the date's finalized yet. So women's clinic before that. I'm personally trying to organize something probably in Florida this winter to get more US women, but any women of any nationality would be more than welcome. So I see the main avenues as we just need to get women to be able to try the boat, and then make sure that and this goes for women and men, it's the same. Get people to try the boat, and then make sure that they understand what boat options are available, that they're picking the best boat for them, and then supporting them as they learn, making sure they know all the resources. If you're interested in getting into the class, there's so many YouTube videos. There are some North Sails webinars, which are excellent. The UK and Australian Moth Class associations, their websites have compiled some resources, so you can find those tabs. So there's lots of information online. And then, of course, don't forget about reaching out and asking people questions of people that sail nearby. The other thing is a lot of people, and I saw this in myself too, they think, oh, I'm not ready for my first moth regatta yet. I need to train some more before I'm ready. And it's kind of actually the opposite. Just show up to the regatta, even if you're super intimidated still about rigging your boat, launching your boat, tacking, jibing, starting. Just show up, because the people are there that can answer your questions. They're excited to help you, and you'll get better way faster. So that is definitely some advice about showing up to any regatta. So back to my role as VP. Yeah, I'll be especially focusing on getting more women into the class. There are other things that come with the role as well. And I look forward to working with Luca and the rest of the exec committee on that. that's, yeah, I mean, that in itself is a big undertaking. So that's my main focus.
Yeah, well, I mean, it all sounds fantastic. Argentina sounds amazing. And yeah, we'll be certainly looking out for any of these camps that are up and coming, and whatever we can do to support would be fantastic to see them happening. And yeah, well, I thank you for all your advice and your top tips that you've offered here on this podcast. And yeah, we wish you all the success in your, both personally in your racing, but also in your new role as vice president of the class. And yeah.
Thank you. I do have a couple more points. One is that it was awesome. Thank you, Magenta Project. Overnight, you sent those pink moth stickers at Worlds, and it felt like overnight they were just all over people's boats at the boat park. So that was a way of, for people who put those stickers on their boat, it was showing their support for the women in the class and for more women entering the Moth Class. So that was really, really cool to see. And one more plug for the Moth. If anyone is listening to this and thinking about getting one, it is a really great time to get into the class. It's a buyer's market. There are lots of boats for sale. There's always some churn after Worlds as people switch things up. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook and send me a message, and I'm happy to try to point you in the right direction. And I'll be working really hard behind the scenes to figure out these clinics and other opportunities like that. So thanks so much, Abby, for having me. And thanks for all you do with the Magenta Project.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Helena. Great top tips there. And yeah, we'll be tracking all the progress in the future. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes this episode of The Sailing Show, where we've heard some really useful tips and advice from Helena for any sailors interested in getting into the foiling Moth Class. If you've enjoyed listening to the show, then please subscribe and share this episode if you know someone who would benefit from listening. And please continue to follow the Magenta Project on our website and social media. To keep up to date on women's sport in general, not just sailing, check out Wisp Sports online and social media. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate you tuning in.